All right, everyone. Good evening, New London. Welcome to tonight's special council meeting, which is dealing with the finance committee meetings for the budget. Let me have hold on, check to see quickly. All right, see all the councilors. Let me just call out the councilors. Councilor Burke, we do the roll call. All right, present. Yes, please unmute yourself so we can do the attendance. Thank you. Councilor Booker.
Present.
Councilor Goodwin.
Present.
Councilor Sadi. I see him here. I don't think he's. Councilor Dice.
Here, present.
Thank you. And our President Pro Tem Nartates will not be with us this evening. Conflict at work. She won't be able to make the schedule tonight. And let me try again, Councilor Sadi. I see him here, but I don't.
He's unmuted.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know. Councilor Sadi. There. Councilor Sadi, we're doing the roll call vote.
He just muted again. Now he says, now it's muted.
Mm-hmm.
He must be having issues.
All right. Let me also acknowledge who's here. Walter Williams is the Board of Finance member who's here also with us. Good evening, Mr. Williams. And of course, we have the different department heads that are present here today, each of you respectively. And what I'll do is, you know what, I don't know what's up. I know Sadi is, Councilor Sadi, I'm doing the roll call vote. I need a yes, sir. Not sure if he's having issues with his mic. I mean, we do have a quorum, so eventually we'll have him jump in as we progress in the meeting. Okay, so let me just read the logistics. Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agendas can be found at www.newlondonct.org. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on city website within 7 days of the meeting. Public comment may be submitted in writing to jstarts@newlondonct.org. If you prefer, you may sign up to speak at the following link on the City of New London website, newlondonct.org/life-stream. This link will bring you to a fillable form where you may submit your name and you will be added to the public comment list and called on via Zoom during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment must be submitted in writing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, public comment should be submitted in writing or your name submitted on the fillable sign-up form on the city website at least 15 minutes prior to the scheduled start time of the meeting. Please include your address in your written public comment submission. Okay, so at this time, again, welcome everyone to our special council meeting that deals with our budget hearings. And this evening, again, I want to welcome the mayor and every department head and all the city officials, and especially our New London residents who are watching or who will be watching this eventually. At this time, the two departments that we have this evening are at 5:30 will be the police department, and also then it will be the human services department. At this time, I am going to be calling on Chief Reichert.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here, Councilor President Dominguez. I'm going to try to do if you allow me to do a screen share. I have a PowerPoint I'd like to present at the time when I'm going along with my budget.
Sure, certainly, Chief Riker. This is President Dominguez. I think, Dan, you'll have to probably allow him to share.
He should be all set to share.
All right, thank you, Dan. Go ahead, Chief.
All right. Can everyone see this screen by chance?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So the New London Police Department, what I'm going to try to do is briefly give you a review of some data, a departmental structure overview, and then a breakdown of the budget by division within the department. If you look at our numbers, these will reflect our calls for service in the last 3 years. You can see, even though 2020 we had a pandemic, we still responded to 65,774 different calls, which is about an average of 180 calls per day, or about almost 5,500 calls per month. Although pandemics going on across the nation, our services are still required and needed, and people continually call police nonstop around the clock. We do uniform crime reporting, and we report crimes against property and crimes against persons. Those are the ones we report to the FBI. In 2020, we had a reduction to 654 counts of Part 1 UCR crime, which would include any of the above categories of murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, and motor vehicle theft. On average, it's about 4 times higher than most cities in the state of Connecticut of this size. So the types of crime we're reporting are greatly different from other communities around the state. Our department is broken up into an operations section, which is our patrol division, an investigations section, and a support services division. We also fund an animal control division on the side. The overview is the chief of police runs the agency, and each one of the captains, as you can see, has a different hierarchy of people and people below them, along with different positions below them. Our support division is primarily training, records, and animal control. Our investigation division is made up of our detective bureau, which does our in-depth crime analysis and crime investigations, our vice narcotics unit, which will also include statewide and federal task forces. We investigate all serious crimes, assaults, narcotics division, narcotics sales, financial crimes, and a lot of other incidents that are reported to us that go above and beyond what patrol officers can do in uniform. The operations or patrol division is our uniform services. This is the backbone of the police department. We run 3 8-hour shifts every day, and typically we run about 5 patrol officers on each shift and 1 in the building at all times, which covers our incoming complaints and our booking of prisoners and the overseeing of arrestees. 1 street supervisor is on the road at all times, and 1 shift supervisor at the rank of lieutenant was within the complex at all times, 24/7. Our 2022 budget request from the mayor's office is $12,285,016. If you break that down department-wide, personnel costs based on salary and benefits are 91% of the entire budget, which is a little over $11,200,000. Agency overtime for all the divisions in the department, is approximately $698,000. It's only about 6% of the entire budget. This 2022 will reflect a decrease in our patrol operations budget in each one of the divisions within the agency. Our operating costs, which are our contractual obligations to different places, including money set aside for maintenance contracts on our dispatch system, our computer systems, any contracts for the shredding of paper within a building, and office supplies and maintenance and repairs and uniform replacements and equipment replacements is what makes up a majority of our agency's operating costs. That comprises 3% of our total budget. This is what a breakdown will look like of how our department is broken out. The largest, you can see, the 60% is our operations or patrol, followed by our support services. Support services includes our dispatch center and all of our civilian employees in the building, and investigations, animal control, and the administrative is a small portion of the agencies make up. When we take a look at our administrative division, our total budget for the administrative division is $522,501. The breakdown is salary and benefits is 75% of that at $389,000. Our civilians have $5,000 worth of overtime for work above and beyond the normal call of duty or what they have to do on holidays or evenings or weekends. Our operating costs are about 24% of the administrative budget. This is just a breakdown of some of our top contracts that we have signed up multiple years for, including a maintenance cost for the computers and radio equipment for a dispatch center. Annually, we recertify through the Law Enforcement Council, so that's our membership in the council. One of our copy capture systems that we work in our booking area costs us about $12,000 a year to keep that system up and running. Monthly, we do shredding to reduce our paper we have in the building. We have to go through, and if we're required by the courts to get rid of paperwork, this is where it comes in, where we shred records. Gemalto is one of our larger ones, which is our live scan fingerprinting system in the building. And we also have a large amount of money set aside for our department canines. The last number of years, the canine, if they require annual veterinarian visits, we've had to neuter and spay 2 of our animals. So this is where we put the money for that in our administrative services. The remainder of that would be office supplies through the building. And if we have any unforeseen expenses that we have to pay for on the administrative side, such as, for example, as this year, firearms, we had to rent a portable toilet for the range. So this is where last minute expenses or planned expenses would come from. Our support service division consists of the captain and his 2 sergeants, 1 in training and 1 in records. We have 1 evidence officer. We have 1 crime prevention and fleet officer, 3 records clerks, and we have 9 public safety, fire, police dispatchers, and 2 per diem dispatchers work a part-time basis. If you look at the salary and benefits, are 87%, almost 89% of that entire division. Our overtime costs broken down are 8.2% of the entire budget for that division, with a vast majority going to our dispatch center. And operating costs are about 4% of that, $2 million. Those include a couple of our internal software programs that we have to do annual maintenance on, and including our VCS system, which is our digital scheduling system, where we are able to hire officers and schedule details for the officers and private duty. Our TIP 411 anonymous tip line system, and we need to keep our equipment certified, such as our laser, our radars, and our DUI machine, which is called the Dragger, have to be annually certified for the courts. We also budget funding for replacement and repairs of computers and some of the smaller things in our vehicles that aren't covered by the city shop. The investigations division budget for the department is just under $2 million at $1,974,000. 93.5% of that is salaries and benefits of the staff. The staff is made up of a captain, a secretary, a police sergeant, 6 detectives, and 4 plainclothes investigators. Overtime for that division is 6% of that. The overtime for the detective division is usually call out for crime scene investigation or holdovers if we have an active investigation going on where we needed to have the information into court and we can finish up the investigations after our regular hours. The smallest part is 0.5% of the budget is the operating costs, and that's basically for supplies related to forensic crime scenes and collection material and packaging material when we send items to the state lab. The bulk of our budget is the operations or patrol division, encompasses almost $7.5 million. Presently, we have a captain, 3 lieutenants, 9 sergeants, 36 police officers, and 6 who are currently probationary in the police academy. The salary and benefits of that division is 93% of that entire budget for operations. The overtime you'll see is only 6%. You'll see a decrease from the 2021 to the 2022 overtime by about $200,000. And the last is $37,000 for operating costs, about 1%. We are required to do a lot of paperwork by the state, and the state doesn't provide that. So we incur the cost of printing all these materials. So that's one part of it. The other is we need to provide personal protective equipment to all our officers on the road, whether it be a bulletproof vest or a replacement, or it comes down to rubber gloves and masks. The other is certain equipment that we issue seems to break down. Portable radios break down. We have to send them out for repairs. Quite expensive with the way new style radios are. So this is where that money is housed. Lowest part of our department is the Animal Control Division in Division number 5. We currently have 2 assistant animal control officers who work under the direction of the animal control officer, which is Captain Brian Wright at the present time. This division is just a little over $200,000. 91% of that comes from salaries and benefits. A small amount of overtime is for call-ins and after hours. We need someone to be able to respond 24/7 for animal control. And on days when there's no one scheduled, we have to bring somebody in, because if we do have any animals in the facility, they have to be fed and watered, and their cages need to be cleaned, 365 days a year. The operating costs for this division are very small. It consists of food for the animals, veterinarian visits. Unfortunately, we do have to euthanize some animals at times, or if we come across animals that are injured, we have to bring them to local veterinarians. If we do euthanize, we have a cremation service that we use. We also advertise for pet adoptions, and if we find stray animals in neighborhoods. So our latest campaign is New London Police Department is your partner in the community. You see us around. Our newest version of Cars has this on the side also. One of the educators from Betty Dover Middle School, rest his soul, came up with that when I was talking to him a while ago. So we decided to go with that. And, I'm available to answer any questions if you have any questions.
All right, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Chief Riker, for the presentation. At this time, I just want to remind all the counselors that whether you're asking a question or just answering, make sure that you always state who you are for recording purposes, okay? And that goes to anyone else too that's going to be speaking at this evening's Finance Committee meeting. So what I'll do is I'll go around. I will ask counselors to ask at least 2 questions, and then we'll follow through with the rest, so we can have ample time for everyone to have that, be able to ask their questions to either Chief Reichert or the finance director or whoever. But okay. So with that said, I know Councilor Sadi is on with us. Evening, was having some technical issues, and glad that he's here. And also want to recognize State Rep Anthony Nolan, who's with us this evening. Okay, so at this time, I am going to begin with Councilor Burke. Do you have any questions to the chief?
Thank you very much, President Dominguez. First, through you to Director of Finance McBride. David, not a huge issue, but my book seems to be missing the investigative services section. I am following along with the PDF online. So I am able to follow along that way. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. My first question with regards to, so I'm going to start with a comment, one that, I really appreciate the Munis format, but a lot of these line items are difficult to read. They seem to get cut off by about the 7th or 8th letter under the service. So first question, for example, under the uniform services section, I have a section called Overtime P that seems to have zero allocation for the upcoming fiscal year. But the chief's presentation just showed $500,000 of overtime for the Uniform Service Division. So can you just explain where the overtime is housed in this budget that we have?
Yes, this is Director McBride. It is in the total police uniformed salaries line item. I have it showing up. What I may do, and I apologize for missing that piece. We did an audit check and must have missed that. So I will make sure to give you a copy of that division. What I may do, if it helps, like I said earlier, we did the budget in both the Excel format, which you were used to last year, and the Munis format, which we did this year. What I can do, if you want, is I have that right now. I can send that out to everybody. If you're having trouble reading that Munis format, I can email that to everybody to assist if that would help. But I'm not sure if that answers your question. But the $500,000 is in the police uniform services overtime budget. So which, I have a different,
So can you reference the line item? So for example, on, I believe it's by, the first page of uniform services, second line down starts in 104-20102-51530, overtime P, and shows a 0. That's the only one that references overtime that I can see. Is there another line item I should be referencing to find that overtime number in here?
yes, if you go to page 25, if you look at the top right-hand side, top right-hand corner of the Munis printouts, if you go to page 25, that's the Uniform Services Division, and you'll see about 6 rows down the $500,000. I believe you were looking in the Administrative Division.
No, I'm in the uniform division. It just, again, that's, so my section is just called uniformed. The first one's called uniform. The second one's called uniformed. I would have had no way to know that that was for overtime.
Yes, that's correct. That is uniformed overtime. And yeah, it has been shortened in Munis. We'll have to look to a way to extend those out. But I will also send out this in the interim, which may assist as well with some of those questions.
I appreciate that. Yeah, for me, the Excel version would be great. That way I can, control F search things. But just as a comment, as we continue to go through these finance committee meetings throughout the week, not having things like that will be rather difficult to be able to analyze this going forward. I will hold any questions, further questions, in case there's times after my other colleagues.
Counselor,
Yes, Chief.
related to that line item, in previous years, there was a police secretary assigned to the patrol division, and that is the line item where any overtime for the police secretary would show up in the past. That unit, the division no longer has a police secretary, and that's why it's a 0 overtime on that.
This is Councilor Burke. Chief, thank you very much for the answer. I'll hold anything until we make a first round, President. Thank you.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Burke. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Booker. You have any questions right now?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, President Dominguez. Through you, President Dominguez, to Finance Director David McBride, or the Chief. Support services, I noticed that there is a significant difference between the budget amount for the line item regular PA and the actual amount spent. For example, it was budgeted for the line titled regular PA in 2021 to be $146,055, but the actual spending in 2021 as of now is $382,738. Why are the budgeted and actual expenses for this line item so different? Director McBride?
Director McBride, you're muted if you're speaking.
Yeah, I apologize. This is Director
Okay,
McBride. I'm
that's
trying to send this other file out. I'm going to send it out
That's okay.
to Jenny right now, and she can disperse it to everybody that may assist. So I apologize. I missed the beginning of that question.
Would you like me to read the question again?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I noticed that there is a significant difference between the budget amount for the line item regular PA, this is in support services, and the actual amount spent. For example, it was budgeted for a line title regular PA in 2021 to be $146,055, but the actual spending in 2021 as of now is $382,738. Why are the budgeted and actual expenses for this line item so different?
I'm going to have to get back to you. This is Director McBride. I'm going to have to get back to you on that answer. I apologize.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much. And I know we only have like 2 questions. I had a lot of questions, but I'll just ask one more question.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
Council. Yeah, this is President Dominguez. Councilor Booker, when we do make the rounds, if there's more time, we'll come back to you.
Okay. All right. No problem. Thank you very much, President.
Yep.
Dominguez.
Did you have a second? You can go over the second.
Yeah, I definitely have a second.
Yeah. You remember two questions. You're fine.
So in the PD investigation services, for line item regular PA, what is the increase from 44,205 from fiscal year 2021 to $51,089 for fiscal year.
Counselor Booker, that is the salary of the secretary in the investigatives division. Joyce Brown is our secretary in that division. She's been an employee for more than 20 years of the agency. So that's where her salary range falls in the current budget, or in the current salary.
Thank you very much, Chief Riker, for that clarification.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Book. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Sadi. You have any questions for the chief?
I do. So I would like to turn your attention back to page 25. And in 2020, actual overtime was 654,000. In 2021, we budgeted 700,000 to date, and I'm not sure what the to date is, whether it's 6 or 8 months. We're at 504,000. Recommendation, I believe it was by the chief, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, was 500,000, which is a 28% reduction. Could you explain why?
Presently, we have 6 officers in the police academy. Once they graduate from the police academy, they're on their own at sometime of early fall of 2021. They're going to be plugged into the patrol roster detail, and they will pick up a big portion of the overtime that we've spent in the last number of years. So hopefully with the scheduling that goes in place takes place once they are released on their own, we can cut down considerably on the amount of overtime we're spending. And this is a projection that we're setting forward to at this time. So we're projecting anywhere between $200 up to $200,000 we believe we may be able to save.
And this is Director McBride. That's a 9-month total, the 2021.
So that would be July to what?
March 31st.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I have no further questions at this point in time.
All right. This is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Goodwin. If he has any questions for the chief or for the Director of Finance.
Through you, Council President, to the Finance Director, could you confirm the budgeted overtime for this year versus last year?
David, you're muted.
Thank you. I apologize. Yeah, I'm going to pull up last year's budget document. It would take me a minute to compute, but I will get that answer for you.
And while you're looking for that, this is Councilor Goodwin. Does it account for any of the savings that are projected in this year's fiscal budget?
Last year's overtime, this is Director McBride, last year's overtime was $1,051,000.
In comparison to the projected for this year, or the actual budgeted amount?
I don't have a projected, this is Director McBride, I don't have a projected actual for 2021. I only have the total current actual.
No, for this fiscal year coming up that we're funding, what is the budgeted amount in comparison?
I believe it's 835. Let me just check.
Thus, it accounts for the suggested savings or the approximate savings.
Yes, the reductions in overtime are part of the savings. Yes, it's
All right.
835.
Thank you. Through you, Council President, to the police chief. Chief Reichard, are there any other ways for savings and or reductions in the overtime budget outside of the new officers that will be onboarded into patrol?
When we look at the overtime, I look at overtime throughout the agency overall. One of the big ones we've had expenses for in the last fiscal year were our dispatch center due to a number of unforeseen problems, including a couple of people who left, a couple of people who were off injured for off-duty on non-service related injuries, and one who was out with a maternity leave. So that moved our numbers higher and higher and higher. We are presently at 9 dispatchers, and we believe that even though we put in for $170,000 last in fiscal year 21, I believe we will see a savings in our dispatch overtime in the fiscal year 22 because of the staffing numbers are where they're supposed to be at 9 dispatchers. And we're also working on a revised scheduling with the dispatchers where we're changing their different shifts and different hours, which will automatically reduce almost $25,000 in mandatory overtime on Fridays that was contractual over the past number of years.
And I was more so looking specifically for overtime, and that was helpful. Overtime in the actual patrol and or officers at large. Are there any scheduling changes or ways we can be a little bit more creative in our scheduling? I believe
yes.
now they're on go ahead.
Yes, one of the goals we have is to do coverage shifts once this group of 6 officers is out of the academy. You have the ability to run a 4th squad and a 5th squad, which we can run anywhere from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the morning, or 11 in the morning till 3 in the morning, where we can divide up the number of officers to use them on coverage shifts, which would reduce some of the overtime. Instead of backfilling a full position, if we had to, we could backfill a partial.
My last question, because it relates to that, is that accounted for in your projected savings that you accounted for this physical budget, the 200 something thousand? Is that accounted for, that schedule change?
I believe it is.
Could we confirm that, please?
Yeah, the finance director did some projections on that, so you can better answer that.
Yeah, this is Director McBride. That's correct. We revised it based upon those projections.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is President Mingus. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Dice. Do you have any questions for the chief or for?
This is
Mhm.
This is Councilor Dice. Thank you, President. At this point, I don't have any questions. But I just want to follow up with something that Councilor Goodwin had asked about the shift for the officers, because I just wanted to find out, there's our shift has changed since our past mayor, and from my understanding, it incurred to for us to for overtime, and I can't recall the type of shifting. So this question is through you, President, to Chief Reichard. What was the shift schedule prior to this one that we're in now? What did we call that?
Currently, the officers in the Uniform Services Division are working a 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 3 days off shift. Prior to that, in years past, they're working 5 days on, 2 off, 5 on, 2 off. So it's a 5-2, 5-2 versus a 5-2, 5-3.
And my understanding, this is Councilor Dice, my understanding, Chief, is that one of the reasons why we're having more overtime for our officers?
There was an increase in the budget a number of years back because of the change in schedule. But as we move forward, the number of officers we have assigned in Uniform Services sometimes creates openings based on the leave thresholds that are in contractual in the union contract. They're allowed to have 9 officers off per shift every day. When people take the day off, we have to staff. So that's what we use our overtime for. We use it for staffing to keep we try to put at least 5 cars on the road every shift. So we try to use it for that, plus our supervision on the road. So we have 2 supervisors working 24/7. A lot of the overtime is for backfill in those cases. If we have training classes where we send a number of people to training, we need to backfill on the road and put people back on the road because we move people from the road to a training class as opposed to training them on an overtime basis. When we have different events taking place around the city, such as some of the events downtown, we need additional officers to staff because we have a limited number on the roads. We'll assign officers on an overtime basis just to certain areas to cover certain events taking place, or if we have certain types of crimes taking place. Most recently, midnight shift, we had a series of commercial burglaries in the downtown neighborhood in the past 3 weeks. So we've been staffing an additional officer playing unmarked car, just doing burglary patrol in those areas. We had a similar one last fall down in Ocean Avenue and Montauk Avenue areas where we had additional officer covering that area at midnight. So that's our patrol overtime is primarily used in a nutshell for backfill and to if we need to add an additional officer here or there because of different events taking place across the city.
This is Counselor Dice. Thank you for answering those questions. And thank you for the presentation. I do have one more question. And this is about the animal control department. And only reason why I had a question about that, because if I'm not mistaken, isn't that regional? We're working also with Waterford. Is I know that the I just want to see were we working in partnership with Waterford. I just trying to clear that up in my mind.
Yes, Councilor Dice, we have a joint facility, but we have separate animal controls between departments. New London has our own, and then Waterford East Lyme has theirs. We just happen to use the same building. Funding provided by the town of Waterford allowed us to do an extension onto that building, so we have more room for housing animals between the 2 towns. New London, based on the way it is, New London has to care for the New London animals, and East Lyme Waterford cares for the animals that are brought in under their name. So we need to bring people in to make sure ours are cared for, and they need to make sure theirs are cared for. But they do work together separately.
Okay. This Counselor Dice, thank you so much, Chief Riker, and thank you for the presentation.
All right, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Dice. And I have 2 questions. Chief Riker, going to page 23. Police Administration, the part where it says other professional, I guess, the 57,000. It says actual for 2020. I think you explained that a little bit, but I see there's 57 actual 2020, and then at the end here, it's budgeted to be 35,000. Why is the change there on that?
That's your 2021. That's what we've spent up to the 9 months. There's still 3 months in the fiscal year that we have not spent on. 35,000 is what we projected for the year for 2021. So we're requesting 35,000 for the fiscal year 2022 also. That it goes above and beyond. That's some of our contractual things that we have to pay for every year or other services that we need. And at times we don't know what we need because things happen during the year. And this is the line item where we would compensate people. If we do certain investigations and we have to farm stuff out, in years past, I've needed a handwriting examiner that we'd have to pay for out of this, or if we have experts come in for any type of investigation or any type of administration function, that's where this would come from.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Chief. And my last question is, not sure if this is on the budget, but do you foresee any promotions happening on the department? And is that allocated somewhere in the budget?
At the present time, we don't have any promotable positions open right now. Usually when we do promotions, it's because of someone moving on, someone retiring, or it opens up, it's a lateral. If you have a captain retires, then you have a promotion to the captain from lieutenant, then you backfill with a sergeant, which would basically fund an opened patrol officer position. But at the present time, we don't have any promotable positions to fund.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. At this time, we still got 20 more minutes. What I'm going to do again, Chief Riker, thank you for your presentation. And I'm going to go back to, I think it was Councilor Booker. You had a question, and I saw Councilor Sadi, and then I'll go to him. Okay.
Thank you very much, President Dominguez.
Yes,
I have
sir.
a couple of questions.
Mhm.
First question is, in support services, what is the increase for in uniform from 2021 of 335,329 to 2022 of 459,923? That's an increase of 124,594. Directed to Director McBride.
This is Director McBride. Are you on, excuse me, page 25?
Support services. I'll read the question to you again, Director McBride. Okay, so what is the increase for in uniform from 2021 of 335,329 to 2022 of 459,923? That's an increase of $104,594.
Point of order, President Dominguez.
Go ahead.
It would be much easier if when a council were to ask a question, they were to mention the page number so we can follow along. Because especially in this budget, there's multitude of pages. So to follow the questions, if councils could, again, state the page, that would be greatly appreciated.
It's page 28, Counselor Sadi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, this is Director McBride, page 28, the second row down, the uniformed police officers. That is due to a change in some positional modifications that were made. I think the chief could probably speak better to that, but I believe he had moved a captain into that division. Is that correct? And that was the resulting change of an additional person in that.
That is correct. The last captain in the last fiscal year 20 retired. And this is the salary projected for Captain Galante, who was recently promoted and moved into support services.
So this is Director McBride. So there was no captain position in that department in the prior year, and therefore the resulting increase is due to that entire new position plus benefits.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Booker. Let me go to Sadi. Go ahead, Councilor Sadi.
Thank you. Through you to either Finance Director McBride or Chief Reichert. Private duty dollars that we receive and or the amount we receive in reimbursement for vehicles, where would that be found?
That's in a separate document in the Special Revenue Fund, Police Protective Services. This is Director McBride. That will be found. Tab number 25, B1 and B2.
And do you have a percentage of what our collection rate is for those funds?
Yes, in fiscal 2019, the total revenue was $1,044,000. There was expenses of $647 and $312. I'm sorry, $647. So the resulting contributions to the general fund was $396,000. In fiscal 2020, the revenues from police fire protection were almost $1,954,000. The payroll costs were $430,000. So the revenue generated to the city was $523,000.
So my question is, Director McBride, what percentage of our billing is collected? I mean, are we at 100% or at 50%?
We collect, I believe, upwards of 95 or 100% of the billings. This is a reflection of the total amount of revenue that was brought into the city. So I will get back to you on the percentage of billings, I don't have the answer in front of me. I was just referring to what the revenues were for the city. I will get that answer.
And then through you, Council President Dominguez, to Chief Reichert, in reference to animal control. He had mentioned that we're responsible for feeding and cleaning cages of New London animals. Is there any possibility that we could see some savings? For example, if a Waterford officer is coming in this weekend, is it possible they could feed our animals and we could feed their animals next weekend? So that we wouldn't have to bring in, there wouldn't be redundancy of services, bringing in 2 officers on overtime to feed animals.
That would be contractual because you're taking work from the bargaining unit members and giving them to another municipality. So it would have to be negotiated through the union to do that. The way we schedule our 2 animal control officers is so we have 7-day coverage with their days off opposite of each other. So we have a Sunday for 5 days and the next one is on for the next 5 days. So we do cover 7 days, but unfortunately there's call outs after hours because we run one during the day shift and one during the afternoon shift. When one is off, sometimes we have call outs. So we need to bring somebody in to take care of the animal issues.
I understand that now. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have no further questions, President Dominguez. Thank you. This is Councilor Sadi.
Councilor Goodwin does.
Yes. Let me hold on, Councilor Goodwin. I know I started with Burke. Let me just go and check before I go back to either you or Councilor Booker. Councilor Burke, did you have a question? Because I know
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yes, President Dominguez, thanks. I have two follow-up questions. I'll try to make them brief. Through you to Chief Reichert. Chief, you mentioned 6 candidates we have in the police academy at the moment. If you could just let us know that once all 6 of those officers are onboarded into the department, both what the total of number of officers we will have, and also of that, how many of those officers live in New London?
Presently on our payroll, we have 73 officers. Of those, plus myself, which would be 74 sworn.
Mhm.
But of that, only 67 are actually on the able to work because 6 are in the academy. So that would bring our total to 74 once they're out of the academy and on their own. It takes a number of months once they graduate from the academy to go through field training and then to get out on their own. So there should be graduating from the academy sometime in late June. So we're looking at several months of field training. Everyone comes along at their own level. So some people may require more, some people may pick it up really fast. So following that, it'll be probably November, December, that bid that we put out for the officers, that we will increase the different shifts to do the coverage shifts, which will help reduce some of our ongoing costs. And the number who actually live in the city, I don't have that data offhand. I am required to live in the city, which I do. The U.S. Constitution basically says you can't require people to live in the city that they work in. So that's been argued numerous times through the state for different police departments and fire departments and public works departments. So I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Sure, and this is Councilor Burke. Certainly appreciate that. If you could just give me a count, at a later point, that would be greatly appreciated. And second question through you, Mr. President, again to Chief Reichert. You mentioned some, practices on scheduling. The fact that we try to keep 2 supervisors on 24/7. It's my understanding that uniformed patrol officers work 4-day weeks every other weeks. My question is, so specifically with those 2 scheduling practices, are either of those bound by the current collective bargaining agreement with the local?
Okay, it's inaccurate. They work 5-day work weeks each week, as opposed to a 5 days on, 4 days on. It's 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 3 days off. Best practices is to have hands-on supervision on the road at all times for reduced liability. And the other is by contract, there has to be a lieutenant in the building or someone being compensated, the regular lieutenant, to be a shift commander 24/7. So we need in my opinion, we need 2 supervisors on at all times because you need one in the building and you actually need one to be able to respond to calls for service on the road for police accountability issues.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, Chief. I'll defer to anyone else and I've asked my 2. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Dominguez, thank you, Councilor Burke. At this time, let's go to Councilor Goodwin.
Thank you, Council President. Through you to Chief Reichard. Could you give me the confirmed amounts for the overtime for the dispatch by itself solely?
I believe in fiscal year 2022, we are budgeting $150,268, if I'm not mistaken.
This is Director McBride. That's correct, Chief.
And is there a number from last year, and you can get it to me at a later date so we don't have to take up much time for last year's actual for that same line item? And my other question would be, I believe in our budget, we have, grabbing it here, there is police accountability measures for our 156K. Can I get an explanation of what that is for and where that would be used?
Yeah, it's put in there from a interdepartment transfer from the mayor's office through the finance department. The police accountability bill, or HB 6004, that was passed into law. There's a number of mandated things by the state which were unfunded, that to include mental health tests for police officers every 5th year and mandatory drug screening for police officers every 3 years when we go for recertification. On top of that is the accreditation. We are required to be accredited by POST and by CALEA by 2025. So the process takes more than 2 to 3 years for CALEA. We have to finish up our POST recertification for accreditation and move on towards the CALEA, which is the National Law Enforcement Accreditation Committee. Part of that is fees for CALEA, and the other part is fees for some of the software programs that we needed to institute to get this up and running. So everything, all our documents that we have, our general duty manual is online. Other types of trainings that we intend to do with some of that department, my initiatives from the department are trainings, annual trainings on de-escalation, mental health evaluations, identifying youth in crisis, working with the Yale Child Study Center, Dr. Stephen Marins, and annual trainings on use of force, both lethal and less lethal, along with our baton training and our OC spray training. And annually by law, since we carry tasers, we have to do a taser recertification for everybody. So a lot of this has to do with bringing some experts in for some of these classes and some of the CIT trainings. So there'll be a funded amount that we'll use out of that for this, along with some of the software programs, accountability measures we need to get in place.
Last question. Will we get any, with this current budget, as well as the actualized staffing that you guys have, as well as the 6 new officers that are on board as soon as they're ready, will we have an uptick or an increase in foot patrol and mandatory biking?
I'll tell you, we're going to do the best we can with that. I like the idea of foot beats. So there's certain areas where—
Wait 1 second, just because I know we're on a time clock. Will we have any minimums and or mandatory aspects to either of those?
Minimum or mandatory?
Yes. Yeah, so you said you would like. I just want to know if
it goes day by day. We have to look at our staffing levels every day. So if we have extra officers on top of the 5 for the patrol car and they are certified for bicycles, what we do when the weather's nice on a day like today, they would be out pedaling their bicycles. Or if we have a need for a downtown walking post, we would put the downtown walking post or assign them a vehicle and do park and walks in different areas in the downtown or business districts.
And is there a way to make that? And actually, I'll save that question. Thank you.
That's it. President Dominguez, you know what? Let me just go with that before I give it to Councilor Booker real quick. So if we're going to add, if that's something that might happen, Chief, this question is directed to you. So is that on top of the 5 officers that you have for that shift to put on a bike, or is that an extra officer will be on that bike or for traffic? No. Or how you use one of them?
It would be based on the daily staffing levels, based on the time off schedules and the way we staff officers. Some shifts will have only 5 people working. Other shifts will have 6. Some shifts we have 7 based on time off. People have training time and court time. So if we have excess officers above the 5, that's when we have the ability to move them to foot posts or to a bicycle post if they're trained for the bicycles.
I'm sorry, Council President, can I just get one point of clarification, please?
Go ahead, go ahead.
So just with this conversation, keeping in mind foot patrol. So currently we don't have those 6 officers as officers that are currently patrolling. We have a schedule that we have our statistics, we have our calls, et cetera, for this past year. This upcoming year, hopefully we'll have these 6 new officers in addition to the officers we currently have, minus attrition or whatever happens there. Would that not allow us the flexibility to have actual guaranteed foot patrol or biking?
It'll give us the better ability to staff in that manner. There's no guarantee that we're going to have, because based on the way people take time off, based on vacation schedules, based on what's taking place day to day. If we have 7 people on and we have a rainy, stormy night, we don't put them on bicycles. We would put them on a foot patrol, or we assign them to patrol vehicle in certain areas.
Got it. Because it's due to time and I don't yield the floor, could you follow up and let us know, or the council at large, let us know what it would look like for us to actually have a schedule and a budget that works to have actual foot and beat patrol? Because this ask and this possibility or this hypothetical situation should not be the situation that we're in.
All right, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. Councilor Booker, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, through you, President Dominguez, to Director McBride. On page 28, I just have a couple questions really quick. There's an increase of 20.9% of health insurance. This is a high increase compared to other departments in the PD. Why is there such a large increase in this line item?
This is Director McBride. The increase is, for one, we increase one individual, so that one individual, depending upon their coverage, could result in a family plan of $29,728. And then I did sit with the chief and we went through every single officer and individual within their departments, and there were a few changes that we had to make. I don't know the particulars, but I believe, Chief, there were a few that we had originally coded in the prior year as either single or spouse, and they, through life's changes, had migrated into a family plan. So that additional cost will be an additional cost to that particular department. Overall, healthcare increased 5%, and then in addition, any changes from single to spousal to family would be the additional increase. And of course, the one new person was a $30,000 increase.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Director McBride, for that clarification. Also, earlier, Councilor Burke, he asked a question in regards to the schedule. And I understand that there was a change in the schedule as well. So with the change in the schedule for officers to have an additional day of every other week, what increase in costs result because of this schedule? So when we look at it from an economic standpoint, Chief Reichert.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me about that, but back in 2015, I believe, when the scheduling took place, you could see the increase in the police budget since 2015, when a majority of that scheduling took place.
Can you, Chief Reichert, can you send that information when you finally have that information? Can you send it to all of us, please? We would greatly appreciate it.
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much. Councilor Booker, no further questions.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. One last question, Chief Reichert. You talked about the state police accountability bill, that all the things that are going to be implemented in the department. Now that's starting, is it in June when that's going to take place, all that, or?
A number of them already have been signed into law, and they started as of October 1st of 2020.
Okay.
We're moving forward. It'll go by calendar year, some by calendar year, some by fiscal year. So we're looking after July 1 when we have to start with our year analysis upon recertification. And we will be testing mentally health testing 1/5 of the department each year heading forward. Those are a couple of the issues. The CALEA is an ongoing, where we need to get our policies up and running. We're working presently with Power DMS, which we signed a contract with last December, January, I believe it was, to get our policies online, up and running. So we have the ability to create a better policy manual that's viewable by the public.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Chief Reichert. What I'll do is eventually I will get a consensus during the week from all the counselors. And if we have to bring you back, then we'll do such. Okay, but again, thank you for your time and also thank you for your presentation and for answering our questions this evening. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will move on to Human Services Department. This evening we have with us Director Jenny Milstein. Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to thank all of you for your support and leadership over this past year. None of us could have imagined what this year would be like. And I can't emphasize enough that New London emerged from, or is emerging from this so strong because of the deep partnerships we have with our community, the nonprofits, the community-based organizations, and our neighbors. Sue Murphy, who was the executive director of the Liberty Bank Foundation, and I co-chair the New London Human Services Network. Before the pandemic, we met quarterly, we share information, we collaborate, we have speakers, and when the pandemic hit, we started meeting bi-weekly. We get about 50 partners on each call. Councilor Dice has attended every single meeting. And just this morning, Sue Murphy said, and she does these all over the state, that she's never seen a community as connected and as collaborative as those of us in New London. It is these community partnerships and this collaboration, communication, and connection that has made a significant difference in our approach to the pandemic. I don't have to tell any of you how this pandemic has impacted the health, safety, learning, and earning of all of our residents. To that end, we immediately, when the pandemic began, reached out to the state and said, we don't want to put people who are homeless in motels. There is a vacant nursing home available. In less than a week, thanks to volunteers, the fire chief, the city attorney, we had that nursing home up and running. It became a model for the state. We also set up the learning pod down at Ocean Beach. That became a model for the state. In the last few months, people in residential facilities who are there for substance use treatment have not been able, many of them have not been able to stay in the facilities when they test positive for COVID. Again, our partnerships, we were able to get a motel in Norwich, and our navigators have been going out there, providing support, bringing food. So we rallied very quickly together. I'm not going to go into all of the different initiatives that we did over the past year, but many of you, all of you were involved in one or another of them. As I mentioned, we have our strong partnership through the New London Network. We have our opioid overdose work that we're doing. That's also become a model, not only for the state, but for others in the country. We're working hard on our mental health initiatives. We started a new committee right before the pandemic. It's a partnership with the hospital, community providers. It's called the Integrated Health Team. And we meet on a monthly basis and review cases of individuals who have been in the emergency room for mental health issues on a very frequent basis. In the last few years, our work in terms of reducing transports to the emergency room has resulted in a 75% decrease in transport of individuals with substance use issues to the hospital. We were able to address and continue to address the unmet needs of so many in our community: food insecurity, assistance with rent, assistance with utilities, diapers, and the internet. Our coordinator of our senior center reached out on a regular basis to all our seniors to make sure that they were safe and to check in on their well-being. We were able to do a lot of resource and guidance over the telephone. We were finally able to transport people back to their medical appointments, food was distributed, and the helpline that we established, the Humanitarian Emergency Lifeline Program, continues to be a source of great, it's a great resource for our community. We're now primarily using the helpline to register people for vaccines who do not have internet, who do not speak English, and do not have transportation. We then, using our senior center buses and a senior center bus driver, are transporting individuals to get their vaccines who do not have, other kinds of resources. We're now, we've gone through the whole evacuation list that the fire department keeps, almost 700 people. Every person on that list has been called. We have identified those who are homebound, and we'll be making arrangements to get them vaccines in their own homes. So again, this is all about partnership, communication, collaboration, and connection. And I'll stop talking so you can ask me questions.
President Dominguez, thank you. Director Milstein. At this time, I am going to just remind again all the councilors, make sure you state your name every time you speak, and also everyone that's speaking this evening. And what we're going to do is we're going to start from Councilor Dice this time. Councilor Dice, first two questions that you have for Director Milstein.
So this is Councilor Dice, and so you pitching her a softball because I'm always in there in her corner, just because I have been on the forefront watching all the things that you've been doing. Miss my Jen, I cannot pronounce your name now, but I would like to know what is some of the initiative that you share with what you've done throughout right this moment in dealing with COVID. What is something that you feel that you can take it to another level because of increase in funding and opportunity? Could you share on that level? Because like I said, I am a strong supporter of what I have seen taking place in our city, but we still got needs out there. I'd like you to share the next step that you see if receiving additional funding. How would this be used? What and who would you partner with that you have not been able to partner with, or partner with more? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes total sense. And thank you for those questions. First, while we've been addressing the individual needs during this pandemic, we're using our data, we're using the information that comes into the helpline to identify systemic issues that we absolutely need to address. The disparities that we all knew were there before have exploded during this pandemic. So addressing systemic issues such as internet, we need widespread free internet in our city. We need to be able to get our neighbors that aren't able to afford Chromebooks. We've seen that the health outcomes, during the pandemic and before, we need to address them, and we need to do that in a very systemic way. I'm so proud that New London has passed an ordinance declaring race. Finally be able to hold ourselves accountable to see what we're doing to make sure that we are addressing the issues. So, this proposed position is really important. And I want to work with all of you and an advisory committee from the community to say, let's break this down and hold ourselves accountable for what we are doing here. And so by doing that, I think a role for me going forward is to really start to look in a more, concise way at outcomes. What do we expect? And we got to inspect what we expect. So that's one. The $200,000 that's been proposed for the Mental Health Public Safety Initiative, this grew out of the Police Accountability Commission that the mayor established last spring. And 40% of all police calls are related to mental health. We want to change the paradigm. We want to expand our Navigator program, have people with lived mental health experience with the police system be our navigators. We have crisis intervention workers through the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. We have our emergency mobile, professionals who come in, but that's for a crisis. The beauty of the Navigator model is that we have like what we call a warm handoff. So for people we could identify right now who are arrested frequently, we will connect them and have a navigator engage with them. It's a harm reduction model. So it starts with, what do you need today? How can I help you? We've been doing that, with our navigator model. Let me help you, when you identify what kind of support you need, what kind of treatment. So we would build on that model. And I see it as a real prevention initiative too, in partnership with the integrated health team, the community care team. We've had such success with the model. And I spoke to the Commissioner of Mental Health and Addiction Services about this model, and she's thrilled with it. Because again, we're taking the police out of the mental health service delivery system as much as we possibly can. And I'm confident that when we implement this, and we will have a research partner, like we do, Yale University is our research partner on our opioid work. I want to, find another research partner, perhaps it would be Yale. Again, we come up with criteria and we hold ourselves accountable.
You're muted, Councilor Dice. You're muted. Go ahead. You can go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
This Councilor Dice, I just want to say thank you for sharing the vision, because I think it's very important that you be able to do that. So thank you. And this is Councilor Dice speaking.
Okay, President Dominguez. Next, we will have Councilor Goodwin.
Thank you, Council President. Through you to Jeannie Milstein. Excuse me. You mentioned the Navigator model. What are the outcomes for the Navigator model? So where does the data end? Does it end in employment, jail, housing, et cetera? Tell me a little bit more about the outcomes so I can measure the ROI.
Okay, great. There are different outcomes for different individuals. For some people, it's getting housed. For some people, it's getting employed. For some people, it's getting their children back from DCF. For some people, it's getting them into treatment. We have engaged with over 500 individuals since this initiative got off the ground a few years ago. So in this case, it really depends on the individual, because everyone is different and everybody has different goals.
Right, and understandably. I guess I'm more so concerned with those that, because, there are going to be some instances where we just can't help everybody. Right. Everyone's needs are different. We don't have the resources, or they don't have the willpower to continue, the processes we put in place for them. Out of those 500 individuals, though, which of those were missed? Which of those, returned back into the police custody? I really just want to focus on the data point from a higher level point of view, to better understand, not as a judgment towards the work you guys do, but more so better understand the reality of the situation or the circumstance.
I will get you that data because I don't have it all in front of me. And like you say, some people we never even hear from again.
Right.
But for those that we do, I mean, the stories, and how, one woman was when she was in treatment, learned that she had breast cancer. And so our navigators were able to drive her to appointments, for her medical care so that she could focus on her treatment and bring food to her family. So it's so holistic, but I will get you some data and not just anecdotes.
Thank you. Thank you, because I think in doing this, we don't have enough money to support the actual needs that we have in our community. There's no if or buts about that, but I'm very appreciative of any work that we do to push the needle. But I think it's important that we follow the data so that we're very specific with the amount of resources we have. So with the 200K additional, which is a 108K net increase, definitely want to note that. Is it safe to say, and feel free to say it's preliminary, so it's too soon to say, I will respect that. 40% of the calls to police are mental health related and such. Would this 200K addition to your resources show a return on the police side where there's less of a need for that? Will it address some of the issues of overtime, bogging up the phone calls to their center there. I just want to see if there's a correlation between investing in your department as opposed to continuing to increase the funding to the police department, not suggesting that we don't or do.
And that's an excellent question. And I believe that it will. You know, in doing research on models all over the country, that's exactly what happens. When you start keeping people out of the criminal justice system and really support their well-being, it does save money and time on the police, you know, public safety side. So I'm pretty confident that we will do this. You know, back from, you know, early childhood days when I was working on early childhood, and I'm sure the number has changed, $1 in prevention saves $7 in later costs. So I believe by supporting the well-being, it's a well-being initiative, it's mental health, it's other needs too. We'll save money, not only in police encounters, but we'll save money on healthcare. Hopefully we'll save money for the homeless system by being able to support and provide those critically necessary services.
Last question, just because it falls in line with this specific topic. Is there a way to address that correlation with specific data points, measurables? Is there a system that exists in another model so that we can track and or correlate it to the specific police department? Because they go hand in hand, or at least in a efficient world, they should. But I think it's important that we're able to balance it on specific data points.
I will get that information.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, I will call on Councilor Sadi.
Thank you very much. So through you, Council President, to Jeannie Milstein, and basically turning our attention to, I believe it's page number 50. And regular payroll, it looks as though it's being decreased by 53. Please.
Director McBride, you want to?
Yes, certainly. This is Director McBride. I can take that. That decrease is a result of a position that was budgeted in last year's budget being moved, and it's currently hired within the police department. So that overall decrease is a decrease in a staffing level from 5 last year to 4 this year.
And what exactly is that position?
That position last year.
It was one of the clerical positions.
Yes, secretary position was the title.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And my next question would be turning our attention to page number 49, which shows a HS administration increase of 60%. And would that, what position would that be for?
Director McBride?
Yes, this is Director McBride. That's the total percentage increase of both of the departments. So it's the overall increase of that department, which represents the total of 544,000. That's a 60% increase from last year's revised budget of 340, which is the main difference is the two pieces, the $200,000 add netted into with the approximately a $70,000 decrease as a result of that position being moved.
Okay, so this does not show a new position for that department then?
That's correct. The overall department last year had 3 positions. Last year's human services admin had 3 positions. This year it has 3 positions. However, the senior center last year had 2 positions, and the senior center this year has 1 position.
Great. Thank you very much. I have no further questions at this point in time, but to Jeannie Milstein, thank you very much for all the wonderful work you do.
Thank you, Counselor Sadi.
President Dominguez, at this time, I'm going to call on Counselor Booker.
Thank you very much, President Dominguez. Through you, President Dominguez, to Director Jeannie Milstein. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for all your great work you are doing. You're doing a fantastic job. Jeannie, Director Milstein, how do you plan to use less police and more mental health support? And what will this partnership with the police department look like?
Thank you. And thank you for all of your work and your support. I mean, to all of you. Thank you. So this model, what we would do is, build on the Navigator model. And what I want to do, like we do with our Navigator model, is establish a community advisory committee that would advise the project going forward. And what we would do is put out an RFP and receive proposals. And again, what I want to do is I want to make sure that and Chief Reichert and I will work on this. I want to make sure that our police get evidence-based training. And training is only as good as the implementation of the training. So I want to build in a robust quality improvement mechanism. We want to make sure that people are well trained, they're well supported, and they're well supervised. What I would want to do is make sure that our navigators and police are all trained together. So we're all on the same page, along with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, because we need consistency and we need compassion. And again, it would all be evidence-based best practices. So that's how I see rolling out. Again, using some of the parameters that we have in our existing model, but obviously it would be a different kind of training, and we would have people with lived experience in the mental health world as our navigators.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And for the training required, is this built in for the request for 2022 budget for the PD for Human Services?
The 200,000 would include training for the navigators, but I'm sure that Chief Reichert has money for training that this would be a joint funding effort.
Okay, awesome. And thank you very much for that clarification, Director Milstein. And also my last question here is through you, President Dominguez, to Director McBride on tab 5, Roman numeral 5. What line items are included in a total in tab 5, page 10 for Human Services Administration? This is a difference of $100,342 total between the salary and the total.
This is Director McBride. I'm on tab 5, page 10. And are you referring to the 300? The exact question is which number are you referring to, Counselor?
I'm referring to, yes, the $338,016. So I noticed that the line items are included in total in tab 5, page 10 for Human Services Administration. This is a difference of $100,342 total between the salary and the total. Can you clarify that for me, please?
Yes, I'm looking right now. I have to add up a few numbers, so I apologize for the delay.
No problem. Thank you very much, Director McBride. Just waiting, just wanted a little bit of clarification on that. That's all.
It's not a question for you.
It's going to be the sum total of all of the columns, but I'm just trying to add them up here for you, be a little easier. So the 338,016, this is Director McBride, consists of the total of the 200, if you go to page 48, it's the total of the various salary, tax, and benefits items, starting with 237,674, all the way down to the 450. So it is in essence the regular payroll, the overtime, the longevity, the health insurance, the life insurance, FICA, the contribution to the retirement fund, RHS contribution, and the eyeglass. The sum total of all those salary, tax, and benefits on page 48 totals of 338,016. On tab 5, page 10, we wanted to provide an individual listing of every single employee as well as their salary. However, last year we had several complaints that the sheets that we provided were too detailed in terms of all the various pieces, so we shortened them. The difference between the 338 and the 237 on page 10 is the sum total of all of the salary, tax, and benefits that are in essence on your page 50. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Director McBride. This is Council Booker. I have no further questions. Thank you.
President Dominguez, thank you, Councilor Booker. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Burke.
Thank you, President Dominguez. Some of the questions I had were asked by my colleagues earlier, but just trying to follow along here. Question through you through to Director McBride. In the mayor's budget address, when he spoke about the new, I believe it was Director of Equity and Inclusion, is that in the Human Services budget or a different section?
This is Director McBride. That is in the internal transfers, along with the other 3 positions, and that tab is tab 24, which is internal transfers, general fund contributions. If those amounts are approved, those amounts will be placed in be a journal entry into that particular division, if approved.
Understood. This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much. And then through you to Director Milstein. Again, just want to echo everything that's already been said. I think your work has been incredibly critical. And again, New London being a leader in this pandemic the past year. And we're New London, so it's tough. We're cash strapped. And I really do appreciate the initiative that have been. However, I do think, when we just looked at the police budget, being over $10 million, the $200,000 start seems like a little bit small to me, especially considering those findings that, for 40% of the calls. So if you could just holistically, Director Milstein, talk about what are some of the kinds of things you would envision, if we had a little bit more money in the bank, we're able to be a little bit more liberal with our funding to your department. What were some sort of the next couple things on your wish list for your department?
Well, thank you for that. I mean, whatever funding I get, I'll use help in the most effective and efficient way possible. Because we have such strong partnerships with the community, I mean, we've already started, working on some post-pandemic initiatives. For example, looking at ways that we can support our families outside of the school day. So, having resources available, perhaps even in another building. So working with the schools and some of the nonprofits on that. We are looking at addressing what I would call the youth well-being initiatives in our community. I'd like to really focus on our teenagers, going forward. And again, I frame that as a youth well-being initiative. So that's something else that, again, we've already started some conversations about what that would look like. Keeping in priority our work in developing systems that address these disparities, whether it's in healthcare, food insecurity. Housing is a major priority right now. And right now we're working, and thanks to all of you, City Councilor and the Mayor, we were able to use CARES money for rental assistance. And now we are working like with the Unite CT. I want to keep that moving. You know, that's going to be going on for a while, to that we take our registration and rental assistance programs to the people. People can't go on these, so many people can't go on it. They're complicated, these websites, to start registering. So bringing more resources into the community going forward. And the internet, the broadband issue is a major priority for me. Our IT director has been just extraordinary and developing a way or a path forward. And I'm very hopeful that we will get funding to do that. So those are some of the initiatives that they're going to happen anyway.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, Director Milstein, for your answer. And I'll just close with a quick comment that everything you just spoke of sounds wonderfully exciting. And, you know, I'm happy to see the substantial increase that we're looking at, and applaud the mayor for, you know, his leadership in not only forming this department, but, you know, funding it vigorously. You know, however, I will quote what you just mentioned earlier ago about how a dollar spent now can be, you know, much greater savings later. So I would, you know, love to continue this dialogue and maybe look at even more ambitiously funding some of the things just mentioned and others. So thank you very much. Nothing further, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Burke. Just to echo what Councilor Burke was saying, I think, you know what, having this department and having you come to New London, Director Milstein, it's been a pleasure and an honor. I know that you know, we appreciate you, and I know each of you have said it, but you know, we want you to know that we do mean it. And also, just, you know, again, just to echo what Councilor Burke said, the leadership of our mayor to be able to provide money and see this need many years ago, and just seeing it come to fruition. And I know that, you know, greater things are coming, and hopefully, you know what, we'll be able to provide even more money to this department to help you, you know, do what you're passionate about doing in the role that you play in the city. So my question, I think, will be, I know that you talked about the youth well-being. I like that. I like that. Can you go a little bit specific more on that? Like, what are some of the things that you will plan to do with the youth?
Yes, and again, this is, you know, this is going to be a partnership and a team. Mm-hmm. My work, you know, is because of you, all of you. I mean, we do this together, yep, and your guidance and support. But I mean, you know, so our young people, you know, certainly we want to, you know, make sure that they have opportunities to, if they want to go to college, to go to college. If they want to go into a trade, that we provide opportunities for trade. Many of our young people in our community have experienced a great deal of trauma. There are many in our community who have aged out of DCF, who have fallen through every possible crack along the way. You know, we talk a lot about the school to prison pipeline. I see a child welfare to prison pipeline, and I want to stop that. I want to do some trauma intervention for families early on. You know, you help a child, you help a family, whatever that family may look like. So I really want to focus on trauma. I want to focus on career development, on supports, on recreational activities. And here, the most important advisory group going forward on this is the youth themselves. You talk to the kids, you talk to the youth, they tell you what they want and what they need. And I want to build a system around that from this very positive well-being framework. You know, I go back to what's good for the health, safety, learning, and earning of all of our residents. And we'll build it around that. And their strengths of the young people in our community. I think I'll start by seeing if one of them can help me learn some technology, you know.
I think they will be willing.
Of course, I don't even need a young adult for that. I could just go find an 8-year-old somewhere.
Yes, I know. All right, thank you so much, Director Milstein. And I see Councilor Goodwin, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you. This is a rewarding conversation, or an enriching conversation, I should say. And thank you for the emphasis on the youth services. I want to get back to the 200K, which 100 or so, 100K-ish, I think it's 108, is what we're actually adding. The others were from savings to get to the total of the 200K. Could you break down this money? You had mentioned an RFP, or request for proposals. Is that, I want to make sure I'm clear, is that RFP to help with the 200K? What is that to fund? What is that RFP for? Or is that correlating to the other money that's in the transfer account for the Department on Equity, or the Office of Equity? I just want to make sure I understood the RFP part of the 200K.
The RFP is 200,000, and that would go specifically for the Mental Health Public Safety Initiative. So the money would be used to hire navigators, to train. Our navigators get extensive training in motivational interviewing, trauma. So training, although would hope that the police would pay for a lot of the training, and building a quality improvement system into this. I'll find a research partner who I'm sure I can get that pro bono.
And then I have a question with regards to the percentage of your department's work. What percentage, and you can guesstimate or get this to me, meets the needs of people of color specifically? So when we talk about opioid crisis and prevention, youth service prevention, et cetera, of the work that you've already done or plan to do, what of that meets the needs of specifically people of color in our community?
I will get you that information, whatever information that I have that I'm able to gather. And I think that's the importance of this new position, the equity inclusion position, because with this position, we can finally sit down and be very strategic about exactly what you're talking about, Councilor Goodwin. But I will get you whatever data that I have right now.
Going into your work now, I would assume there isn't an equity lens to account for the work, accounting for meeting the needs of people of color. Is that correct? It's hard to gather that data.
Yes, we always have an equity lens. And our partners are a diverse group in the community who guide us every single day.
Got it. And my last question is, what is the specific barrier, if you don't mind sharing, and it's fine if that's a complicated response, with us not having Wi-Fi currently or meeting the needs of our Wi-Fi and internet shortage in our community? What is that actual barrier?
Oh, the barrier, and I'm happy to talk about that right now. For our seniors, the majority of our seniors who belong to our senior center do not have Wi-Fi. I mean, Marina was able to get, Chromebooks and so on, and internet to those who didn't have it, but that's a large task. And that really compromised telehealth, Councilor Goodwin, for some in our community who needed it most during this pandemic. Not having internet really, hampered our ability to get people into the vaccination system initially. So for people with disabilities, again, compromising telehealth, which is a critically important, part of day-to-day living. It also impeded sometimes, getting registered for different programs. So, again, we were filling in gaps all over the place. The school system did an extraordinary job because only 20% of all families with children in the New London public school system had Wi-Fi at the beginning of this. The school, was able to get resources, and 100% have, the resources right now. But I want to see something sustainable. It's wonderful that we can get people Chromebooks. It's wonderful that we can pay for some free internet for a while, but that is not systemic change. Internet, again, I'm speaking, I really truly believe that we have to have internet access for all of our residents. That's like a public utility, Councilor Goodwin.
Right, and let me rephrase that, and I'm glad you said that. I guess initially, I completely understand the disparities and the need that exists around Wi-Fi. It should be criminal that we can't meet that need already. I was more so asking to address what is the barrier prohibiting us as a city being able to provide that necessity or that.
I'm sorry. Okay, now I got it. So what we needed to do, and this is why our IT director has been absolutely extraordinary. He has been working very quietly for almost, I don't know how many months now, with different providers around the state who are doing some work. And we focused on Hartford because Hartford, well, in Norwalk, but Norwalk, a lot of the money that came in was to just pay for internet that was free for a year. In Hartford, they're looking at providing internet citywide. So we've learned a lot from what they've done in Hartford because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. I know there's a lot of complicated things around fiber and optics. But what I do know that how we're different from Hartford is that Hartford has a lot of tall trees. So they had to build a system around tall trees. We don't have the tall tree issue. We have a lack of tall buildings. So Rick is working diligently to figure out where we put different devices on different buildings. And so we're actually going to have a plan for at least, maybe a phase one of going forward that should be done fairly soon. And now with all this, we have a donor who's very interested in helping us with a little bit of it, but it has to be matching funds. And because we're going to have a proposal, maybe not for the whole city, but just the start of one, I think that puts us in really good shape in terms of the funding because most communities have not done that.
And now, is this something we can actually expect and look forward to, or is this something that's still hypothetical or in the works? I'm trying to get at some things that we can actually expect out of the investment that we're putting in.
You're going to have words on a paper soon, we have actually going to have, like I say, for so many months now, he's been working diligently, with partners learning.
Like me to answer any questions on it.
Oh, yes, thank you. Oh, you're there. Thank you. Please.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
We have fiber issues and getting it from one side of the city to the other side so we can get it out around the schools. That's been our biggest technical challenge, but I think we're really close on this and we hope to have an answer soon.
Got it. So I'm assuming this is not necessarily just a funding problem.
No, there was some technical challenges.
Got it. Thank you, sir. And Ms. Milstein, thank you for your vision and your vision. I don't want to say passion, your vision on all of this.
Thank you.
Let me call on, thank you to both. This is President Dominguez. Let me call on Mayor Pastoral and then Councilor Dice. I'll let you guys show your hand too, okay?
Thank you, President Dominguez. And just on that issue, because it's very exciting about the broadband access, is it came up today in morning log meetings with CCM, the Council of Municipalities, and there's also it looks very optimistic that some of the American Recovery Act is going to be directed towards this effort to build out broadband access for everybody. So we've got a head start thanks to Jeannie and Director Genovese's efforts in the city here. We'll be ready to hit the ground running, but I am feeling optimistic that there will be funding for this effort one way or another. He's also, of course, recruiting partners and has been aggressively doing that too, aside from now the American Rescue Act money. So it is pretty exciting, and I can see light at the end of the tunnel for solving that issue in our city.
And, thanks to Representative Nolan too. I mean, the governor has proposed money in his budget that would go to the Public Utility Regulatory Authority for money. And as you can imagine, I've already reached out to them and told them that we want New London first on the list if the money does, stay in there. Although I do think that, with a lot of the federal money, and again, aside from, the money that's coming directly to the city, there's going to be a lot of federal money. And I can't thank Representative Nolan enough for his advocacy in Hartford. He keeps New London at the forefront every single day, and very specifically, which is important. So thank you. I had to get that in because we couldn't do these systemic issues and get the kind of resources we need without him.
This is President Dominguez. Thank you. Thank you for that, Director Milstein. Of course, you know what? We definitely appreciate our state rep, Nolan, for doing the work that he does, selfless work that he does to help New London. New London is home. So we appreciate him greatly. At this time, I think I want to go to, I think it was Councilor Dice, right? Councilor Dice?
Yes.
I haven't forgotten.
Yeah, this is Councilor Dice speaking. And Director Jeannie Milstein, I want you to know that I do know your name and I have been watching you. And one of the things that I want to share to the council to all the counselors is that one of the things throughout the meetings is that Jenny talks about outcomes. Being a child advocate, she shared the importance of watching systemic change, of true change, and the organizations that she's been working with are organizations that's embedded in New London and want to see a difference, such as Safe Future, higher edge, drop-in learning, child and family, TVCCA, Whalers Helping Whalers. Throughout the summer, she was out there making sure that families got served. But then you got Centro de la Comunidad, and you then you have I can't even think of the organization, the young man, but I watch Latinos, Blacks. I have watched so many people receive services, and that helpline, oh my goodness, they're able to speak to people in Spanish or any language, and she will find someone to help them. But this morning, when we talk about United CT, about helping landlords make sure that they get a chance to get their rent paid, I appreciate it to learn about the bus that could come with computer access and so forth. So I guess what I'm sharing is that we need to make sure that when we're making a difference, or we have people in our communities making a difference, that we just speak up and say thank you. So I'm just going to end on that note. This is Councilor Dice, but I just want to let her know that I do know your name, and excuse me for not saying it properly the first time, but I also know your walk and your commitment to this community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I didn't even realize you didn't remember my name. I know you do. Come on. So thank you. It's a partnership, Councilor Dice. You know that. It's a big, great partnership.
Yes. President Dominguez said, yep, it's about teamwork. Thank you, Director Milstein. It is. Okay, so let me, does any other counselor have any other questions?
One follow-up.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Councilor.
I'm just curious with regards to access to information for all the wonderful things that Councilor Dice has alluded to, and also that we've learned on this call, and some of the things that we know. How can we increase access to this information of all the wonderful programs that we have in the city of New London? Sometimes I think that's a huge barrier, is folks not having access, or us not aware of the generational divides that we have. Whereas, the baby boomers are, more prone to internet, whereas millennials are more text-based or social media-based. How can we increase our access to the information for the resources that we have available, or that will become available?
Right. And, I think, that's a really important point. I think, we're so busy doing the work that we don't step back to kind of summarize everything we're doing. We get resources out to people in the community, and we have flyers and food. We have, we do handout at vaccines. We do a lot of outreach with trusted people in the community. So I need to figure out a way to summarize that more effectively and get the resources out.
I think the mayor had his hand up, but that's a fair question. I love the fact that you always mention it's a collaboration. So I'm very encouraged by, that commitment to collaboration and keeping us apprised of what's happening and including us in it. So thank you.
President Dominguez, go ahead, Mayor Passo.
Yeah, I think Councilor Goodwin makes an excellent point, and Director Milstein is as painfully aware of this as I am, and the whole team is. One thing we don't budget money for, and one thing we don't have the time or the resources to put into, and that is sharing some of the wonderful efforts and the accomplishments of this team. So 5 years in, we still haven't really faced that issue of communication. Unless you're involved with one of these efforts and been touched by that. I mean, we receive thank you notes from people, but on the whole, the community would not necessarily be aware of some of the great initiatives. And that's just also a matter of not prioritizing in our, trying to divide up our scarce resources. We don't put time. I mean, many other chief executive officers will have a communication director, will have a position devoted to doing that. And I've never had that luxury, so my staff doesn't have that luxury of getting the word on the good work they do out. So it's just a priority issue that we haven't gotten to yet.
President Dominguez here, Mayor Paso, maybe through the marketing, maybe we could do something along those lines.
We are prioritizing marketing our economic assets. We're even prioritizing that above marketing our administrative efforts, our government administrative efforts. But I think that's appropriate. But we are getting there. I mean, incrementally, I speak about incrementally getting healthier financially and then being able to devote the resources to investing in ourselves. And we should get to that at some point, I hope. And we of course, council sets the priorities ultimately. So we ultimately will take your lead. You're the board. You're the board that is overseeing and judging our performance, and we're sensitive to that.
Definitely. And I also wonder if we could also, collaborate with the Board of Ed, distribute things in the schools, information. I mean, that's the major population. We have the children, school-age children from elementary to high school. So, there's a couple of things that we can do eventually.
And that's a good idea because we use the food distribution now. We have for example, vaccine information, rental assistance, where you get diapers, all of our different resource guides go out. We're actually going to do, one of our Unite CT, we want to host one registration event like in a school parking lot so we can get the families, when they're picking their kids up. But I think more to your point, President Dominguez needs to go out to the schools, and that's a great idea.
Definitely. Thank you, Director Milstein. And I think, just a comment. I mean, there's nothing greater than what we're doing, serving people and helping people. I think that's what we're all in public service, public service servants, to help those in need and those in our community. Any other counselor questions or comments?